Hello, and many thanks for still staying with us on the program Global Morning. And I will now turn attention to the National Union of Road Transport Workers. It looks at there's a crisis rocking the union, and this is coming from the senior advocate of Nigeria, Femi Falana, who has called on the federal government to immediately reinstate the president, Baruwa, as the president of the union. Of course, there are grounds and considerations on the courts that affirmed his leadership. Now, Falana is actually describing and directing the split to the Attorney General of the Federation, Lateef Fahimi, and the Inspector General of Police, and that they should ensure compliance with the judgment of the National Industrial Court and that of the Court of Appeal. And it also said the concern of event of August 28, 2023, Falana said a gang of armed thugs invaded the National Secretariat of Nurtw in Abuja. Tragically, one of the security personnel guarding their premises was killed during the invasion. And there was a report in September 2023 that Baruwa and 21 others, including 3 other national officers of the union, were being detained by the police in Abuja and have been charged with alleged criminal conspiracy and the public disturbance and conduct likely to cause breach of peace. Now they were arrested and detained and subsequently moved to the facility of the Special Anti-Robbery Squads in Abuja. The attackers, Falana said, seized the secretariat and orchestrated the removal of Comrade Baruwa and his executive team. Baruwa and his executive were later arrested and charged with murder. But Falana is saying that the charge of murder was withdrawn and struck out after illegal seizure of the secretariat. And after seeking a redress, Baruwa turned to the National Industrial Court and confirmed that Baruwa and members of the executive are the elected leaders of NURTW. Now, fast forward to this event. The former NURTW chairman, Lagos State, Mr. Musuli Okinsanya, popularly known as MC Oloma, was elected the new national president of the union on November 10. Okinsanya was the sole candidate in the election which took place at the union secretariat along the Osobo-Ikurin Road. And now all of these, some delegates in Lagos, Ogun, Ondo, and Ekiti participated in the election. Baruwa says and is insisting that he is the president of the NURTW. So a lot of concern. And on the program this morning, I've been joined by a legal practitioner, Mohammed Abdulaziz, who will be giving us a perspective to this concern, because it looks at the sensitivity of the matter is that if it's not well managed, if it's escalated, there may be some level of breach of peace, and that's the reason we are having this conversation this morning. Good morning, and thanks so much for being part of the program.
Good morning. It's always a pleasure to be with you here.
Thank you so much. A lot of concern when we understand NURTW. You know, basically, that those are having a question: what is their job? You know, how are they so much important? What is the significance for their existence? And those are paying attention to the fact that yes, that the one organizing, you know, the transportation system and all of that. Even when people feel, you know, sometimes they overstep their boundary in terms of the discharge of the duty. But having a leadership, their leadership have been in crisis as of last year up to now. And now MC Olomo has now decided, I'm the president. Now going against the court's order, and that is why Falana is insisting that Baruwa must be reinstated. All of this is already creating, you know, breach of, you know, peace within that union, and it's a very sensitive matter.
It is really, really sensitive. For me, what the learned silk says is actually very correct, because if judiciary is supposed to be the last place of hope for the common man, and when the common man, and in quote now, not so common man, the ex-president of NURTW, Baruwa, has approached the court to seek reliefs and seek discretions of the court, and he was successfully able to litigate his case and get the orders of the court. I think it is only reasonable that we allow citizens to enjoy the fruits of their litigation, the fruits of their efforts that they made to the judiciary. And this goes a long way to tell us how this government or how this current administration, their perspective on obeying court orders. Because we saw a very, very delicate precedent that was set by the previous administration that repeatedly ignore court orders, despite multiple court orders, despite several pressures from the civil society organization. They don't obey court orders. So this is yet another litmus test for this current administration to say, let's see how much of how you are listening to the yearning and aspirations of the people, and how much you value the judicial system and appreciate the judicial activism. So for me, I think it is only reasonable that if MC Oluomo has also has a case, I'm not so sure if MC Oluomo was part of the case where that declared Baruwa as a president. But if he was not a part of the case, he still has opportunity to join. He still has opportunity to go and join issues with him through the judicial system. So it is very important that if he was part of that proceeding, then he has no option but to obey the court's order. And whether or not he has the support of the presidency, it is not relevant. What is relevant is that you obey the court orders and you comply with the reliefs that has been granted to a party in a judicial process.
I mean, because once we continue to look at the rule of law and the consideration of all of these facts, they have also pointed to the fact that, MC Oluomo at one time, flouted the court's order during their dispensation of the national order and all of that consideration, and of course that was why he was expelled from the union. And that if he was expelled from the union, on returning back, you ought to probably start from the grassroots again for the period of 2 years before having the capacity to contest an election. That those that are describing that exercise, that elections, as purported, and that's the reason why they're having this consideration that it ought not to be Baruwa that was probably shown way out of office due to the fact that of litigations about murder cases and all of that wasn't right.
Yes, while it is correct that some of these organizations, their constitution is very, very pristine and it is very, very sacrosanct for it to be followed. But you are indicted, but you are under trial for murder or you are being tried for a case. You are presumed innocent. So that should not have been a valid ground for him to be set aside, or for him to have been for his presidency to have been toppled, or for another fresh election to have been conducted, or his seat to have been declared vacant. No, that is not the law. The law will have been that he is deemed innocent. Wait for when the court will indict him, or when a sentence or when convictions will be passed over him. Then you can begin to say, okay, you are not fit and proper. After all, we have a convicted felon in the White House, warming up to enter the White House currently. We're talking of President Donald Trump. So it's in an unprecedented and historic political situation. So what much more? Someone who was just under trial and declaring the seat vacant, and we went ahead to conduct another election. For me, this is another way to just raise sensationalism in our system, and we must avoid it at all costs.
Because there was an illegal seizure of the Secretariat as on point, all of this consideration. Now, those are appointing figures to our security agencies, because it looks that there are always these concern of security agencies taking side. This other group who feels the security is not for us, rather it's for this set of people. What is the security agencies? What is their role in matters like this?
Yes, of course. In matters like this, what is paramount to them and what should be paramount to them is the maintenance of peace and order, protection of lives and property. But it's unfortunate that in this country, that is not the situation. He who pays the piper, yes, he who pays the piper have to dictate the tune in the country. So the security agency were not supposed to dabble into the arena. They were not supposed to, hold on to one side and say, oh, this is the side. After all, these are the people that briefed us, these are the people that bought us, or these are the people that are paying us. It is wrong, and what all of this will continue to do to us as a country. Will continue to skirt democracy. Will continue to topple organized system. And also, a point I also want to make about this whole national road transportation is, you see, that organization is quite, let me say, incongruous, because by nature of the setup, most of the people that are members or that are not run, they are really not lettered. They are the town fashion. Let me put it that way. They are not of the gang version of fashion of gangster. Yes, in terms of gangsterism, cultism, and sect, and all those kind of stuff.
That role requires one to be all of this description.
Well,
in the same society.
No, it shouldn't, because if it is organized in the first place, if that organization, if the so-called NURTW is well organized in the first place, we shouldn't have to contend with issues like this. Because when you set example to say, after all, we're on the unofficial sector, unorganized sector, but we are better off. We can set example, we can set standard. Unlike you see that rating the road transport employers and social media is not as incongruous as reality, because I've had the opportunity to interface with the leadership of rating. They are really organized, and when issues like this arise, there are laid down procedures that they follow, and they value legal advice. I'm not sure, I'm sure they will have legal advice and national legal advice. These situations are the time where the national legal advisor, his role will come to bear to say, okay, this is the right direction, let us take this right direction, let us honor the reputation of our organization. People have already had an emotion or a certain prejudice about our organization, but this time to change the narrative and right the wrong.
So in the projection, because it's a sensitive matter, as I said earlier, if it's not well managed, or we'll end up seeing, some of the gangsters in the different parks, this other group saying, we are from this other group and all of that. So leading to, citizens at the end of the day being the victim of such situations. What should be the way? Because it looks that the court has spoken and the Falana is asking federal government to adhere. But on the other hand, some people are saying it looks that it's government favored. I'm talking about Solomo, it's government favored. So all of these try to put a whole lot of pressure on the judiciary, one, and also the jobs that you've spoken about, the security agencies as well. How do we manage a situation like this? Because those are having a concern that, as you said, many people do not respect court orders, and there are different interpretations, to court orders. And even the Chief Justice of Nigeria said, yes, we know we have a problem in the judiciary by few acts and all of that. So how do we get to sanitize these all systems? Because it looks that it was inaugurated. What order did they have to inaugurate him? The legal practitioners, the legal team that also carried this out. Are lawyers also contributing to the problem we are having? Because it looks that it's a whole systematic issues, and we must pay attention to all of that.
I agree with you. It's a systematic issue in the first place. Just like I said, in the first place, if we were in a sane and proper society, this kind of situation would have not arisen in the first place. But it's quite unfortunate that we're in this situation, and we must continue to sanitize our system. And I also agree with you on the point that the judiciary, it's looking like it's all a contributory systemic deficit on our part in the judiciary. I agree with you very well. Now that a party has gone to court, I think it should have some respite. And the reason why we have the judicial system is for people to come and build their need, try your case, come and bring up evidences, and let us know what the law says. And the law, what the law says, is what the court says. So it is not right. I heard you, if I heard you correctly, you said that you have been inaugurated. So for me, it's still not. It can be done because anything that was done based on normality in law can still be reconsidered. So if it has been done, it can be done. So the most important, the most important thing is that this wrong is righted, is corrected, and I will continue to appreciate the Leonard Silk, the Leonard Silk from Falana, and he has a way of being, of putting government on their toes. So this coming from him would no doubt put certain pressure on the Office of the Attorney General, Ministry of Justice, which is very close to the presidency, and we can see if presidency can begin to move into the matter let's have a roundtable discussion, even if we cannot abide by the order of the court who clients, and can let us begin to settle out of court some form of mediation or arbitration to see that, okay, this is the group, so that we can have unity and unite, so that at the end of the day we don't have to have two factions. It's very common in the organized sector in this country that issues like this they make the organization have two factions. One side will be led by a party, will be led by the aggrieved, while the other party will be led by the other side. So we've seen it happen too many times in this country, even with PDP, even with some of our political parties, even with so many all these associations, so custom
the National Association of Nigerian Students and Nuns.
Yes, they have factions. Yeah. So that's what I'm saying. These are some of the issues.
From the others,
they are learning actually. So let's hope that we begin to stem some of this civil unrest, because what is going to mean is, if this situation continues the way it is, things are going to get so bad that you're going to see. Maybe I have there's a number already. There's somebody who's already.
Yeah, so the last
so maybe there will be more casualties. The secretariat will still be prone to further and further attacks until the right thing is done. So I'm hoping that the presidency will yield to the beck and call of the Nurtw, and I'm also hoping that all the parties that are concerned on this issue will come together to the round table and find a common ground, and in the interest of peace and in the interest of justice and in the interest of not to be seen as flaunting the court order or sabotaging the judicial system. So I think that's what,
because it is paramount, and when you look at some of the responsibility that those that are having a concern, it looks at they're also revenue generated association. They are also contributing to the revenue generations in the country. But it looks that many Nigerians still have diverse opinion about how they are able to carry out some of their responsibilities. Sometimes you see the rises of what they call agboro, on the streets, and unions, the harassment, public harassment. There are many underlying issues that the union ought to pay attention to in the bid to addressing all of that, which is still must be a concern. And we're having this conversation because we have to look at it critically as well. The rises of some of these, different group of uniforms, flattering themselves around, claiming unionism. We've even seen the FCT saying, trying to stop some of that. But in a bid to getting all of these addressed, do you feel that we are having the numbers too much, generating revenue, collecting revenues, and all of that in respect to carry out their responsibilities?
Well, the issue is a very dicey one. So to take care of the first point, you cannot talk about the ills of these agboros and so many problems that are going on in the transportation sector, that these guys are, this set of people are stakeholders in that sector. You can't begin to talk those issues when the house is divided upon itself, when there's a leadership crisis. And so what is the only reason that we resolve that crisis first, then we begin to now put them on their toes and say, look, your sector, this is these are some of the ills of your sector, this is what is wrong here. You should look at addressing this issue. And on the second point, the fact that of course they generate revenue, of course they contribute to the economy. I don't think it is that significant, so to say, because
the collections.
Yes, the collection. Because another thing is accountability. Because some of these collections might not even get to where they're supposed to get to, because of the nature of the elements that are involved in that particular sector. So it is a very
doesn't the government are not in any way working hand in hand? Are they really entirely giving their responsibility out to some of this union? Because sometimes you see how they are operating as if they are government itself. And we just mentioned of accountability, because there are those that are asking, if we have many cases of let people board vehicles from the parks. You've seen people saying, "Oh, avoid one chance." That's the reason you must, board vehicles from the park. So it looks at the parks, designated parks already in the city centers and all of this concern. And now, if at every time a vehicle loads, or what they call loading from the parks, they get to charge. At every time. So you look at if the money have to be handled with government at the end of the day, is something to the adding to the agenda of government. But in a way, it looks at it gets to the pocket of few individuals, and which undermines the essence of having such a body.
Yes, I agree with you, because if you had an opportunity to interface with this set of people, you be forced to almost believe that they are actually different from the government, or they are a government. And I think why that is because there is certain level of autonomy that they enjoy in that sector. And so I've seen one too many cases where algorithms will be taking the place of a security agency, trying to arrest people and tax them and collect monies. But at the end of the day, we realize that some of these monies don't even get where you're supposed to get to. So just like I said earlier, it's a totally unfortunate situation that we find ourselves in, and we must try as much as possible to see that we begin to right and correct some of these ills that are sabotaging that sector. So the leadership issues that they have, and also the operational issues of the way their members, or their, should I say, executive members, or their agents and enforcers, so to say, the way they act and the way they behave in the city, or different cities of Nigeria. They need to change the modus operandi so that we can begin to enjoy a saner climb, a saner transportation system, a saner organized labor system, because situations like this are actually calling for disorganized labor. So and when you say disorganized labor, it's a very, very serious situation where the sectors are not organized and people are doing what they like. Before you know that, I don't be surprised that some of these issues might even escalate, that certain parks will be locked down. It has happened before when there was power tussle between the NURTW and the road and the rating. So there was serious. I know of a park in Kwara State where they had to demarcate so that national takes one, road takes one. So don't be surprised that these issues, these leadership issues, yes, and they'll be victims. It can bring that sector to a halt.
Just as the leaders.
As the leaders, that's what I'm saying. How would you feel if you get to this, if maybe you are not mobile and you decide to take the public transport and you say no movement today, no car is going to load anybody today because president that they are doing on the there's an order from above that says, you understand? So these are some of the long-term and some of the ripple effects of this situation. So we must avoid it, we must nip it in the bud and address it now that it's still fresh. And that's why the presidency must come to the aid, must come and intervene and lead into these issues like the Leonard Silk has advised. I think it is very, very important, and all parties and all stakeholders must not play to the gallery. We must address these issues.
Well, the major concern for everyone, and of course most importantly for the government, the Attorney General of the Federation have been advised by Falana, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, with respect to management of these concerns raised. The sensitivity of the matter of the National Union of Road Transport Workers is still very much of importance, so as not to breach the peace in the country. Many thanks for joining us on the show this morning.
It's always a pleasure. Thank you very much for having me.
All right. I will now turn attention to other matters of the day concerning about respect to the projection of the Universal Basic Education Commission in the Nigeria's educational system. 80 million out of school children is still a very worrisome statistics and a number that we must pay attention to. After the break, we'll be discussing that with you guys. So stay with us.
Business Point on Global Television.
The business world can be dynamic and unpredictable, with headwinds and volatility sometimes becoming an obstacle for players in the business and economy landscape. Watch Business Point on Global Television as Samuel Oji walks you through the twists, turns and curves in bands, stocks and crucial market indices from a global standpoint. Watch Business Point weekdays on Global Television at 11 a.m. West African time. Business Point. This is business.
Business Point on Global Television.
The business world can be dynamic and unpredictable, with headwinds and volatility sometimes becoming an obstacle for players in the business and economy landscape. Watch Business Point on Global Television as Samuel Oji walks you through the twists, turns and curves in bonds, stocks and crucial market indices from a global standpoint. Watch Business Point weekdays on Global Television at 11 a.m. West African time. Business Point. This is business.
Business Point on Global Television.
The business world can be dynamic and unpredictable, with headwinds and volatility sometimes becoming an obstacle for players in the business and economy landscape. Watch Business Point on Global Television as Samuel Oji walks you through the twists, turns and curves in bonds, stocks and crucial market indices from a global standpoint. Watch Business Point weekdays on Global Television at 11 a.m. West African time. Business Point. This is business.
Business Point on Global Television.
The business world can be dynamic and unpredictable, with headwinds and volatility sometimes becoming an obstacle for players in the business and economy landscape. Watch Business Point on Global Television as Samuel Oji walks you through the twists, turns and curves in bands, stocks and crucial market indices from a global standpoint. Watch Business Point weekdays on Global Television at 11 a.m. West African time. Business Point. This is business.
Business Point on Global Television.
The business world can be dynamic and unpredictable, with headwinds and volatility sometimes becoming an obstacle for players in the business and economy landscape. Watch Business Point on Global Television as Samuel Oji walks you through the twists, turns and curves in bands, stocks and crucial market indices from a global standpoint. Watch Business Point weekdays on Global Television at 11 a.m. West African time. Business Point. This is business.
Business Point on Global Television.
The business world can be dynamic and unpredictable, with headwinds and volatility sometimes becoming an obstacle for players in the business and economy landscape. Watch Business Point on Global Television as Samuel Oji walks you through the twists, turns and curves in bands, stocks and crucial market indices from a global standpoint. Watch Business Point weekdays on Global Television at 11 a.m. West African time. Business Point. This is business.
Many thanks for sister with us on the program Global Morning. A lot of projections and development, and that's why we needed to have a discussion surrounding the National Union of Road Transport Workers in respect to the leadership Tussle, the acting president and the newly inaugurated president. The Court of Appeal has asked that he steps down for Baruwa, and there's still a lot of appeal coming from Falana, the senior advocate of Nigeria, in respect to the leadership of the National Union of Road Transport Workers. In all of that, it still goes back to the internal democracy of association, internal democracy we are practicing in different organizations, which is still, the broader perspective on how we can get better in terms of practicing, democracy, allowing the will of the people to stand for the people. And that's the reason why we had that conversation. And of course, we will be wrapping up very soon, highlighting some of the progress that will be coming from our news bulletin today throughout the program. Subsequently on the show, we'll also be having a concern about the presidency's reply to the former president Obasanjo, and on the program, Big Talk earlier later today. And of course, we'll also be having the projections about some of the development with respect to economic indices in Nigeria. Queen.
Absolutely, it's been an interesting ride, and I'm sure our viewers look forward to these conversations later today on Big Talk and some of our programs that we're going to be highlighting these issues, the challenges and possible solutions as well. It's been an interesting conversation from the headlines, the newspaper headlines, down to the talks of the National Union of Road Transport Workers and all of the controversies playing out right there. But there's still appeals, like you said, but Baruwa hopefully has been, reinstated again. And so that's where we are at this point of time, a point in time, and I think this is a very good place to leave the conversation. Don't forget to follow us across all social media platforms using @GlobalTVNG and other handles showing now on your screen. Our colleagues will be here again tomorrow to take you on another journey through the national dailies, national papers, headlines, and big stories, as well as critical conversations of national interest that will be of interest to you, and I'm sure you want to stick back and listen. So join us again tomorrow on Global Morning. From myself, Queen Agaba, and my colleague Edikan Michael, we say have an amazing day today.
And just before we wrap up, Anthony Modi will be here by 10 a.m. to bring us updates on the world of sports, a concern about Rwanda and Nigeria's last night's clash at Uyo, where it was recorded 2-1. Rwanda defeating Nigeria. But in a way, we are still very qualified for the AFCON. And Anthony Momodo will be here on the program. And of course, we'll be here to enlighten us more on the sport development in the country. I am Edikan Michael. Bye-bye.
Welcome to Global Morning.
The death toll from flooding.
Most time our politicians just bring in policies too, for sure.
Incidentally, we have several more stories.
The legislature was carefully crafted to
22.2% inflation rates as of April this year. What does that say about where we are as a country?
I think Nigeria has resorted to being resilient.
Before you call a police station, before they even leave, they'll take permission from.
I don't think there's really anything on ground to improve.
We struggled, we had to strike.
The Minister of Education volunteered and said, give me 2 weeks.
It was a lie. The president never gave me any deadline.